Ready?
We're all set.
Okay. My name's Jan Woodworth. I'm a professor with an associate professor with career and technical education, and I'm going to get us kicked off today. The name of the session, Empowering Adult Learners with the Why. And in a minute, we'll do our introductions, but I wanted to start a little bit with a definition of what adult learners are and how we're sort of defining them. Because if you think about it, all of our students coming in to the university at 18 and over, presumably, are technically adults. But we're kind of separating what we're calling adults to be people who are coming back to school, who are coming after having some life experience. So they are people that have been out working, doing something else first, and either coming back to school because they did some amount of school before, or coming to college for the first time. Typically they have, we're going to be going over some of the characteristics of those learners and what we look at for age range, but typically we're looking at 25-year-olds and over. So before we get going, just a couple of one logistical thing. If you have any questions along the way, if you would put them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. Carol will be keeping track of the chat for us. And right now, we'll just start with going through introductions of the group of us that are presenting. So I introduced myself. We'll go right down the list. So Carol, you can go next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Willard. I am a faculty member in the Curriculum and Instruction Department and Associate Dean for the School of Education.
Donna?
Donna?
Good morning. I'm Donna Matteson, and I've been at SUNY Oswego since 2001. I'm a professor in the CTE department. Jan didn't mention, but I work with Jan, and we currently are working on doing adult education in industry, a boot camp. It's a 2-year program. So we work with adults beyond SUNY Oswego, which is quite an interesting experience for sure. Anyways, welcome.
Carrie is supposed to be here, but Carrie unfortunately went to a conference last week. Not unfortunately, that part's not unfortunate, but while she was there, she managed to pick up COVID. So she's not feeling well and will not be joining us. So we'll be moving on to Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Brancato. I'm an academic planning coordinator in the Division of Extended Learning. I work with online and our Syracuse campus-based students who tend to often be returners or students coming back later in life. So I work pretty closely with quite a few adult students.
And last, Theresa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Theresa Gilliard-Cook. I'm the Associate Director of Instructional Design.
Okay. So we'll move on from there.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Theresa.
All right. Yeah. So remember, just as Jan said, that Carrie won't be here today. So we're kind of picking up some of those pieces as we go along the way. So as Jan mentioned in this session, we're going to explore some questions pertaining to who is the adult learner? How do they differ from the traditional age student? How do we engage adult learners? And how do we meet the needs of our adult learners? Now, keep in mind the strategies we're going to describe and talk about are appropriate actually for all learners, but especially relevant for our adult learners. So I would be curious to hear what, those of you that are in our session, well, how would you describe an adult learner? And I know Jan's talked about that before, but what do you think and they are, and your experience with them, what have you found? You can put it in the chat. You can just mention it as well, take yourself off. Yeah.
I think for me, Jessica Harris, Department of Health Promotion and Wellness. I think for me, when I think of adult learners, I immediately go to kind of our students, like within my major, some of our online students that are possibly working full-time. Again, not to say that our students that are here on campus aren't as well, but I think I have a lot of students that have families, they're taking care of children, and working full-time, which can make it difficult with some of our courses like internships and things like that. So they're a little bit more unique than the traditional, college student who's living on campus in the dorms here. So I feel like it is a little bit more difficult sometimes when they're completely online or asynchronous, trying to, build that rapport and have that connection. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, but also trying to learn how to kind of meet those needs of those adult learners too, and kind of the complexity of what their situations may be.
That's very true, Jessica, and that's a lot of what the research is showing too. So to build on that, so when we think of our adult learners, they're usually typically over 25-ish, sometimes younger though. They likely work full-time. They are more than likely financially independent. They may have children, a spouse, a partner, maybe caring for elderly parents. They're juggling lots of responsibilities. But what they do have is that motivation, that intrinsic motivation to complete their degree. Maybe not, thinking about, okay, I still have kids at home, so how do I do this? Or after a loss of a job, looking for ways to increase their marketability or to increase their ability for that promotion. Most adult learners consider their education an investment in their future. They consider the cost versus the reward. And they look at ways for what they're doing in their classes, how that actually does come and help them think about where they're going. The one thing I do want to say, though, is that in many cases, there are these traditional age students that are in this group as well because of life happening. So thinking about, we do have young ones, and I say young ones, I mean under 25, that already have children. Due to a variety of circumstances. They may be the primary breadwinner in the family because of perhaps a family, a parent is not able to work due to illness or disability. So we have to think about that too. Even though our focus is that adult learner, we have to think about the young ones who may actually be taking on many of those adult responsibilities. So when we, as educators, when we talk about pedagogy, and we talk about it often, we seem to use the term as an encompassing. Thank you. God, encompassing term that describe the method and teaching of the method and practice of teaching. However, when you dig down deeper into the definition, pedagogy is actually teacher-led instruction, which is used in the teaching of children. So think of it as the sage on the stage. However, for adult learners, andragogy allows more control of learning by the students with the instructor acting as the facilitator or the guide on the side. So when we look at this image here, it talks about the 5 assumptions of adult learning, and that adult learners are self-directed. They're looking for relevance. They're intrinsically motivated. They have life experience that can contribute to their classroom work, and that they have a skill set that includes problem solving and are very practical. So what does all this mean? For adult learners, or for that matter, any learners, it is critical to get and hold their interest and attention. They want to know when they're in your class, how do I use this in my day-to-day, in my coursework? Is this useful to me? Is this relevant? they want to be provided opportunities to control their learning process. And when thinking about activities, we as educators need to think about how we engage the students in meaningful ways and to utilize what they already know and what they have experienced. And lastly, learners should be satisfied with what they have achieved during the learning process. And I'm going to hand off to Donna.
Okay, so there's several features that I've learned over the many years. Before being at Oswego, I taught high school, and then after high school, I would go and teach BOCES, which is mostly an adult learner after school program. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with adults and a lot of similarities. Plus, when I got my doctorate, mine was on higher education and adult learners. So antagogy is very familiar to me. And what I found out is the common concern most adults have is they really need purpose. They need to know what is the purpose of this instruction. They want to be very productive with their time. Time is a real priority for adult learners. They're trying to manage, think about juggling all those things in their life, whether it's family, work, and they need to know that what time they're spending has a practical application. And I know this is relevant to all students, but adults more so. For example, they really do want to know where that knowledge, each little kernel of knowledge, where does it fit? Where am I going to need to use this and how do I use it? So they want to know those connections, and they also need to be connected to their prior experience and to where it fits to their future experience. So you're kind of like, it's building blocks. I call it scaffolding, but they really want to know those ties. How this course is going to help me do better in my next course that I need to take. Just like taking methods, taking assessments, they all have links, and adults really want to see that linkage happen. I also, in my class, I give them specific applications that relate to possibly their future classroom so they can start thinking about how will I use this information in a practical setting. Such as in things that I give them information on are like classroom management strategies. As a high school teacher, I know how important that is. You can have the wonderful lessons, but if you can't manage your classroom, and they want to know those things, but they want to practice them too. Authentic instruction, that's why practical. We give them some time to get actually out in the classroom. During each course, we have practica hours, which are really important. Authentic instruction, how to engage your learner. So it's not only their engagement, but what are engagement strategies that they can learn. Secondly, and this is probably really important to bring them out of their shell. They come into your class, they're not very comfortable usually, because they may not have been in a class for a very long time. And then sometimes they're in a class with a lot of young people, and that can be intimidating because, they're maybe afraid that they don't have what it takes to succeed. So we need to, one, bring them into the fold, share, get them comfortable with their students, build their confidence. And one of the best things to use is respect for their experience. Ask them what kind of experience they've had related to the topic and the content that you're going to teach. And then I've got a couple of notes here I want to make sure I don't miss out on. And then, have them share some of the resources and some of the stories that they have to share that relates to that particular content. I find that not only engages them, but it really does help them feel more comfortable and gives them that self-respect or that respect from other students, because other students kind of ask questions and all of a sudden they're engaged, and that really works very well. I also try to give them choice when completing assignments. They can use a variety of things, whether it's written response, a video, maybe they want to do an interview. One of the things Jan and I just noticed as we're working through our instructor boot camp, we're teaching not content, but we're teaching how to write a lesson, how to do assessment, things like that, strategies of teaching, not content. But we find that the adults want to pick their own topics of instruction so that they can make it their own. So instead of a generic, okay, everyone's going to write a lesson plan and I'm going to give you the topic for it, that doesn't work so well. So we found out that they really do want to have choice. I often use an opportunity for them to do like a trifold poster and do a poster like a presentation, poster presentation. Not everyone may be comfortable standing up front of the class and speaking. So giving choice, especially in the beginning with those adult learners, so they continue and so they start to build confidence, I think is really important. The next thing is feedback. They're pretty sensitive to feedback. So I try to start out, and I actually learned this from my daughter. So she said, start out with a positive, like read through whatever their discussion post or their assignment, the reflection, and give a positive nugget first. I really appreciate what you've said in this, and this, and totally agree. Good job on that. And then you can say, and I was thinking that maybe you could have taken this a little further, or you give a little feedback of what might be able to improve their knowledge. So again, positive before the feedback or suggestions for improvement. I also give them a chance to resubmit. That's a big deal on me. It takes a lot of time, but I think it's really worth it for them to get that feedback and then be able to make modifications to their lesson plan or their assessment and make it better and resubmit it for a better grade, because grades are important too. Some of the examples, I don't want to take up all the time, but I use the KWL method, because it engages them. What do they currently know? And then what do they want to know? And then what are we going to learn, and then reflect on that. For an example, if I were to ask you to write on a chart, it's usually a chart, we start out with, what do you know about creating a test to assess your student learning? And then they could, maybe nothing. They might be blank, but they may have written a little test or a quiz or true false or something. And then the second column is, what do you want to know? And that kind of guides my instruction too. I make sure I cover those points. Then I provide the instruction. They have some experiences, followed by, okay, this is kind of, what do you now know? What have you learned from this instruction? And then if you have any questions, we would try to make sure we cover that. But that's not mine. That's from Donna Ogle. I think her last name is 1986. So it's been around for a long time. We also like to engage students with their peers a lot online. And I moderate that. I add extra questions. I try to really keep those prompts real world and practical. And I encourage them to share resources with each other. So
can I just add something, Donna, real quick?
Sure.
That KWL framework, I think, can also work as an introduction to the course, especially for adult learners. What do you already know about this topic? What are we going to cover in this course? And then come back to that at the end and say, what have we really learned? And what are some examples or some artifacts of this? And so, as Donna has said, showing those through lines, keeping it connected, I find has really engaged learners throughout the whole course. So I just want to add that piece of KWL can be used for the whole course and not just a particular topic.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. In the discussions, back to the discussions, I try to, if I can have them team up and work together and proofread each other's work or give feedback before it comes back into me. They get a chance to see a different perspective, because it's all about broadening perspective, growing their perspective. I also have students read the different discussion posts. In a minimum, they have to reply to 2, and then they have to respond back and forth. I give them actual numbers minimum, and that actually relates to their grade, to encourage more discussion. Also, it adds to the depth of understanding. And I do real world scenarios and have them problem solve. So I give questions rather than answers for them to. They have to do reading, and it always connects to the reading, of course. Reflection journals, I think, are ideal way for them to get to that last piece where they say, okay, why was this information important and how does it relate to not only today, but the future, my future classroom in most cases. So I think that that's really important to have that opportunity for them to do that reflection piece at the end. And I read every reflection statement. It's not shared. I've got it set up in Blackboard where it's not shared with anyone. It goes just directly to me, the reflection, and then I give them some final feedback on it. Maybe if they still have a question, I might answer that question or give them some resources, additional resources and things like that. But I think you'll love working with adult learners. They're great. I've learned more from them, I swear, than they ever have from me.
Okay, we could flip a slide here. There we go. Adult learners like details in a lot of ways. They like to know specifics about the course, specifics about what they're going to be doing, specifics about timing, when things are going to happen. They like to know all of those details that sometimes younger learners are not as tied up in. We like to use a lot of exemplars with adult learners. And again, a lot of the things we're talking about are things that are great learning tools, no matter whether you're dealing with younger learners, you know, your typical college student, I guess is what I'd call them, versus your adult learner. But they're more key necessarily for your adult learner. So exemplars, giving them a sample of what it is you're looking for. There's a lot of fear of not doing something correctly. And so they'd like to see an example. The other thing, if you don't want to give a full example, is to give a detailed rubric of what you're looking for. So they know what the pieces and parts are that they're going to be getting graded on, and what your expectations are for what they're producing for you. So either an example or a rubric. I use lots of examples because a lot of what we do is, as Donna was saying, they're writing lesson plans, they're writing different types of assessments, they're doing things and they don't know how they're supposed to look. So I do a lot of, I put a lot of examples in there for them to look at. Something I learned a little bit by accident with adult learners, even though I did quite a bit of adult learning beforehand and a lot in college, was that a 0 is just not an appropriate grade for them. It's probably not an appropriate grade for anybody if they turn something in. But I've had students turn something in that was really off the mark. They really missed it. For instance, in assessment, they have to write a rating scale, but then they also have to write a rubric. And a lot of people mistake those two things as being something similar. So instead of actually turning in a rubric, they'll turn in a rating scale. And I'll tell them, this is not a rubric. You need to redo it. And in the beginning, I would give them a 0 because it was completely wrong. I gave them a 0. And I got feedback from them that was like, I spent hours on this. How could you give me a 0? Okay, I did it wrong, but I don't deserve a 0. If I didn't do it at all, maybe I should get a 0. So I quickly learned that, okay, maybe we give them, you know, depending on how you're grading, but something that's in a 65-ish range, a barely right on the verge of failing range. So, and then the opportunity to redo it. And Donna mentioned this. I use redos on all my courses, and they really, some students never redo it, do a thing. They'll look at it, especially my undergrads. The grads do it more, but they won't take you up on the opportunity. And the way I do redos is I tell them that if they get less than 90%, because not all my assignments are graded on a 100-point scale, they might be 40 points. So if they get less than a 36, which would be less than 90%, they can redo it. Once they're in the 90% range, which is, you know, the A range for a grade, I'm not going to keep redoing it because it is very burdensome on the instructor's part to be regrading and regrading. But I give them the opportunity for 2 regrades on every assignment. And my logic and my personal feeling on that is, if I send a teacher out to be a teacher who's been writing C-level assessments, they're going to give C-level assessments to kids. They're not going to be doing a good job in the classroom. But if I've given them the opportunity to work to doing A-level work, that's what they're going to be handing out and doing with their students. So I'm hoping that in the process, I'm creating better teachers who really understand their work. Because one of the things we do know about the way we learn is that the more we practice something, the better we get. So when they redo it, they're more likely to remember what part they had to redo than if they hadn't done that at all. And then feedback, which Donna also touched on, is really important. And adult learners are much more open to critique because they want feedback. And one of the criticisms I've gotten from students along the way is, if I give them, they do hand something in, they handed a great rubric, and I give them all 40 points for the rubric, a 40 out of 40. And I say, great job. They will sometimes write back to me and say, well, I was really looking for help on how to improve this. I want it to be better. It's nice that you think I did a great job, but tell me how I can be better. They want that input. They will often engage you in a discussion about, thus the little graphic there, the back and forth discussion on what your input or your comments were. So I love working with adult learners, and I learn, as Donna said, I learn from them all the time. I think it's just important to realize that they come with a lot of background and a lot of background knowledge, and they use it, and they're very into their education. They tend to be very ready to use whatever it is you're teaching to take back to whatever it is they're doing. So whereas a lot of our 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, it's more theoretical because they're not actually using it yet. A lot of these adult learners really are. Okay.
Do we want to move on here?
Yeah, we're to community of, where are we?
Oh,
Yep.
wait, where, I thought you had a piece in there, Lisa, before that, or is it after?
I think
It's
it's
after.
after.
Okay, we changed things around. Okay, that's fine. So as we've talked about all these other things, one of the things we find is that course design matters. Any of you that have worked with an instructional designer here at Oswego know we use backwards design, which is beginning with the end in mind. So when you think about that, is what should the students be able to do at the end of this course? And this helps to clearly define the learning objectives. What do students need to do to demonstrate competency based on those learning objectives? And then what are the artifacts that should be there to help a student provide you with that information, that they know what they have the base competencies. This can help you as you think about the different assessments you need to have in there. Again, you also have to consider the mix of your students in your classes. And again, it doesn't matter modality, though I think in online, you're going to find more of a mix of traditional age students and our adult students. But it's also thinking about what those assessments look like. So here's a simple one, and this one's actually happened. So for example, asking an introductory discussion question where they're doing introduce yourself with a question, what does a typical Saturday night look like in your life? As opposed to a question is, what do you do on a Saturday night in your dorm? Your adult student isn't going to find that helpful to be able to answer that, though they could figure out how to work around that. But again, as you think about creating these assessments, thinking about encompassing all of your students and providing ways for them to interact together. engaging with your content, again, it's providing opportunities for students to engage in the course, student to student, student to instructor, and student to content. It's also helping them and supporting them in the critical thinking and other opportunities to engage with the content. And lastly is inclusivity. So thinking about, as you're designing your course, regardless of modality, thinking about universal design for learning, but also then addressing diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice within your discipline, and thinking about those considerations for all, regardless of race, class, ethnicity, gender, LGBTQ identities, disability, and/or religion. And then the last thing is flexibility. And as Jan and Donna both talked about, is the ability to redo. It benefits all. Also considering flexible due dates. So this idea of an extension without penalty. One of the things that Carrie found while we were at CIT was this article that was published in March of 21. Regarding this idea of an extension without penalty. And I've included that item in our list of resources. But one of the things that was found in there was that flexible due dates did not, flexible due dates lowered student stress, but without loss of rigor. So it also then reduced faculty stress, and it did that because the flexibility of due dates were outlined from day one of the course. So basically it was regularized and normalized. So instructors didn't have to worry as much about students asking for extensions because they had that flexibility already built into the course. There were some very interesting components within that article that I found really interesting. And I think there are benefits to consider that, particularly for our adult learners. And again, this whole idea of inclusivity benefits all of our students. So as we think of community, building that community of learners, we talk about the idea of the instructor as a facilitator or the guide on the side. And again, that we talk about that a lot in online, but that also is incredibly beneficial regardless of modality to the adult student. The adult student tends to see the instructor as a member of their team, as a member of their support team. And they want to know, they want you to know they are taking that course seriously. And this is another way too, to encourage that student to instructor interaction. Adult students really appreciate networking opportunities. It helps them build the relevance within the field that they're looking at, helps them find ways of thinking about what they've already done and making that relevant into where they're going. It provides opportunities to share resources on that topic or related topics. Internships or opportunities for internships and meeting professionals in the field also help students, particularly adult students, pull all of those pieces together and see that relevance. Connecting with classmates, again, that helps with the student-to-student interaction and building that community of learners. For example, students can review each other's papers. They can think about discussions being much more collaborative and how they can maybe work together in doing different discussion posts in different ways. You can, even with an online, you can do short targeted collaborative group work, just simple, quick 1 or 2 assignments throughout the semester, because there's a lot of research that talks now about the more challenges with doing group work and fully online. And also, again, that getting to know you activity, but those informal check-ins that you as an instructor can provide to all of your students, but particularly your adult learners, to help, when you see that maybe they're not as engaged as they were, just those little bit of those points of where you reach out and say, hey, how's things? Everything okay? Can really help keep them motivated and engaged in the course.
So I'll shift gears a little bit and talk about advising, which is outside of the classroom most of the time, or at least for the roles of those of us who are professional advisors and have our students assigned to us outside of the classroom. It's it's a little bit different. I like to think of it more as a sliding scale. I've worked for a long time with traditional students, first year students, and other traditional age students up through roughly 22-ish. I had a few adult students here and there, but it was a different lens. I've noticed now that I'm working with the adult population I have some traditional students now, but that adult population, it's a little bit different. The comparison that I've noticed is that when I was working, especially with first year students, it was a lot of cultivating that transition, or working with that transition from high school to college, getting them to take ownership for all their matters, being responsible for appointments, being responsible for showing up to class, for getting their work done, for turning something in, those pieces, versus where working with the more adult population, it's advocating for them, facilitating, finding the solutions, more creative solutions, because they're coming with a different set of circumstances that maybe we need to help find more creative solutions for. And it's not a one size fits all, traditional age versus adult student. It really is. There's learners who have traits from both populations, and some of them are in that transition from one population to the other. I have students who are traditional age, but by other criteria that define adult learners, they technically are adult learners due to work, their employment situation or family situation. So they have a little bit of both. And I think in the advising role, it's being a good listener, finding where that student is at in their needs, and maybe peppering in a little bit of giving them that sense of ownership and helping them develop that, along with being flexible and working with them as a partner to find solutions to what they're facing. NACADA, the global, I forget the whole thing, advising community. It's the professional association for advisors. It has an adult learning advising community. They have a LinkedIn page. There's ways to connect with other professionals who work with adult learners. And I would love to share the advising community webpage. It's currently down. So when I have received notice that that's up, I can add that to our, we'll be sharing out the slideshow. I can add that link to it. It's been down for quite a while. There was a tech hack on their website back in the winter, and they're still working to rebuild some of their pages. So that's a great resource, another community of professionals who work with adult learners, and they share resources and sometimes webinars or online virtual networking opportunities. So I'm going to stop there and turn it back over to, I think, Carol here.
Yes, we just wanted to wrap up by highlighting just a couple of themes through what everybody has said today, and just the importance of really supporting our adult learners and helping them to see both in a respectful way how we value their participation, and how really approaching it with a growth mindset, that even if there may be something that an adult learner can't do yet, we're here to support them and to continue their journey with them. Having flexibility along with high expectations is important, as we've said over and over again. And I know sometimes it feels like flexibility makes it too wishy-washy for students, but I think you can have flexibility within structure, as much as that sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron. I've had experience and success with both flexibility and a structure. Like, you have some flexibility in when you can turn this in, but here's really the last moment or the last time in the semester this can be submitted, because we're moving on, or we're building off of that, and we're scaffolding our experiences or the work that you have to do it. So this is why it's important to do it at this juncture in the course. And I think providing that upfront, transparent understanding, or our reasoning for doing things as the instructor, helps our adult learner put things into perspective and helps them to plan accordingly with all of the other things that may be occurring in their life and the other demands on their time. It's also important to create a community of learners, to provide some support from their community in the class, that the classroom community, if you will, whether that's a asynchronous or synchronous or face-to-face class. I think it's really important to do that so that our adult learners also learn how to look at their resources. And it's not always about going to the instructor immediately, but looking at some of the resources, some of their colleagues in class or other resources that might be available on campus. And so if we create structures within our class to encourage that, I think that's really important. We started off with our title, the power of knowing the why, right? I think it's important both for us as instructors to know why our students are there and what their goal is for our course as well as for their program of study, but also for our adult learners to know the why from our perspective. Why are we doing this? Here's where it is. This is where it's contextualized. This is where it fits into the long range plan, but also where it fits into our particular course plan. So I think that those are all really important points that we wanted to reinforce that we've said a couple times through different examples, but just to kind of sum it up. Carrie did have a little anecdote about when life happened and it was, I don't want to steal her story because she experienced it, but basically she had some personal situations that occurred and she was really distraught over that, thought for sure she was going to have to leave the course, withdraw from the course, or maybe even leave the program. But she got up enough nerve to talk to her professor, and professor was really quite understanding and accommodating and helped her to get through that. And so I think that that's an important lesson for all of us, just about being open to listening to our students and encouraging them to use us as a guide, if you will, to help them get through the program, get through the course, and really understanding how we can work together so that we feel successful as an instructor and our students feel successful as students and as though they have accomplished the objectives that they set out to accomplish in the course. I'm gonna, Lisa, if you can skip ahead 2 slides for a second. To the resources, I just wanted to show those resources real quick.
All right, I was skipping ahead on my monitor where I was.
Okay.
I was on the wrong screen.
I just wanted to share with you these resources, and wherever possible, we put in links so that you can access these materials, just to kind of get some tips of both in terms of strategies to use in your class, but also ways to think about the adult learner. And with that, if you can go back 1 slide to questions. If anybody has some questions, we're happy to listen to those questions now. I know, Laura, you put a question in. Do you find that adult learners tend to succeed better and or prefer certain modalities than others? And Donna responded that adult learners seem to prefer the flexibility of asynchronous instruction, although feedback shows appreciation for consistency with the format of the weekly instruction. And also course schedules are provided to students with dates and deadlines. In my experience, I think some adult learners prefer face-to-face in the sense that they know that they can dedicate that time. Sometimes when you're doing an asynchronous or a synchronous online class, other things impede. I mean, I know even myself, when I think I'm going to be working from home, you know, I throw in some laundry, somebody comes to the door, there's a million things that can pull away your time. But if you're in a separate location, face-to-face with an instructor, sometimes that can be a good way to kind of engage and be focused. So I think it really depends on the learner, what they prefer. And I think it's important to help our adult learners, I would say all learners, to sort of think about their own learning strategies. And sometimes one strategy might work better and sometimes another strategy might work better, depending on the assignment, depending on the course content. So I think it really can be flexible. That's why I think it's great that we're moving to a lot of courses that are offered at multiple modalities, depending on our learners' needs. I know we've talked to some people in the School of Education who started off on an online program and then decided that didn't work for their particular, the way that they learn best. And so they switched to either the face-to-face. And then of course we have people who have life situations that make it hard for them to be face-to-face, and they switch to the online format and they're quite successful. So I think it really depends on the content, the program of study, and the learner. Do any of the presenters want to add some other questions?
Carol, one of the things that I didn't mention, and I really wanted to, especially with working with adult learners for many, many years, is there's this caveat, the technology piece, in the big range of abilities in your students, whether they're adult or otherwise. I mean, it just tends to be sometimes we assume that they have technical abilities, working with a computer, being able to do a PowerPoint, being able to even go online and Google search something. I mean, we tend to forget that not all adult learners are computer savvy. So I'd like to throw that out because, again, that's really important. You might want to include that in your survey or have some exercises or resources so that they can go on YouTube. We find that, I know Jan and I have found that in the instructor boot camp, that some of our adults, just haven't had the computer background. And so they even struggle to get online or to go to Brightspace or, I mean, it's really, and that's kind of fearful for them in a way. So we have to alleviate that fear and kind of show them around. And that could also connect to their comfort with modality.
The other piece I've found with online, with adult learners, is they forget that you can't see them. They forget that you can't look at them and see when they're confused. You can't look at them and see when they're sick or stressed. So I always encourage them repeatedly to let me know, because I don't know when something's going on in their life. I don't know when they're down and out with COVID. I don't know when their kid has suddenly had appendicitis and they've been in the hospital for 3 days with them having their appendix out. I don't know that stuff. I've had students going through divorces or a parent dying or, all of those life things, as I think it was Theresa that said earlier, life happens all the time and it can happen at any age, your younger learners or your older learners, but your adult learners. But I do think adults tend to have a little bit more going on sometimes and more responsibilities to handle. So I try to encourage them to always let me know, if you're down with the flu or something, just send me a quick note. I'm down with the flu. I'll let you know when I feel better. And then I can work with them. What always disappoints me is when you get to the end of a semester and somebody pops in with, I'm so sorry, I've been absent through the whole semester. This happened and that happened and this happened. And I didn't know any of that was going on with them. And all of a sudden they're failing the course. When I could have at least advised them to withdraw at the very least. And maybe we could have been flexible or found another way. But a lot of times they leave it go. So encouraging them to speak up and let you know what's going on, I think, is a real key thing for the online learner, and particularly the adult online learner.
Great. Just to that technology piece, I was just going to say, I found it helpful, although we have a terrific resources on our SUNY Oswego webpage on how to use Brightspace or, how to make a video, all kinds of great resources. Sometimes even that is difficult to say to your students to say, well, just go find it on the webpage. So, or on the website, on the Oswego page. So what I've tried to do is to link those things directly, either in my Brightspace or in my syllabus. Like if you have a question on how to do this, here's a link for you, and to label it really clearly so that when the student is concerned or stressed, they can find some resources quickly, and use those resources to help themselves before they reach out to the instructor. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or I'm sorry, Theresa, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say to add on to what you just said, Carol, keep in mind that Oswego subscribes to the SUNY Online Help Desk, which has longer hours than our help desk. And if students are having trouble, particularly with using Brightspace, whether they're trying to submit an assignment or something like that, the staff there can talk them through how to do whatever it is they're struggling with. They can also, again, being after hours, if they're saying that, oh, that I need to submit this assignment and they're not seeing it there, again, they can at least go in and look and say, okay, yeah, it's not set right. I'm going to reach out to your instructor and let them know. Or they come back to either one of the instructional designers or Kathy Dutton to let us know, and then we reach out to the faculty. So, but that is an amazing resource that allows them to have some real-time assistance.
I think even just the help desk in general. A lot of our online students and a lot of the adults don't realize that there is a help desk
Yes.
and how to access it and how easy it is to access and how quickly they'll get responses. So just informing them of the help desk.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry, did you want to say something, Jessica?
Yeah, I had a question. Thank you all for your presentation. So I had a question about adult learners and kind of the sense of belonging, like being a part of the campus community. I've noticed, within our department, we've really tried to make sure that all of our students feel like they're a part of the campus community, even if they're asynchronous, adult learners. Any advice on how to do that? I've had some students who want to do more. There's events on campus, but obviously they're not here. What are your thoughts on, how to help students that are adult learners be or feel like they're more a part of the campus community or the department as a whole?
One of the things I've done is encourage them to get an ID. I know that sounds silly, but somehow it gives them ownership, and they can do an ID. They can send in their own picture so they don't have to have a picture taken and be on campus. So if they're off campus and they can't get here, get an ID. The other thing, I know this sounds really silly, I encourage them to buy something that says Oswego on it, whether it's a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, whatever it is, just to feel some ownership in this is the place I'm going to school. And some of those, it's funny because they send me pictures now. A lot of them do, of being in their t-shirt or their sweatshirt, or they're wearing their hat or whatever, or putting their baby in a onesie that says SUNY Oswego. So I think that helps a lot. And I really, really encourage coming to graduation, because especially when you're an online student, you don't feel that link to your university. And I always I know it's at the end, but I think it gives them a sense of ownership. This is where I went to school. So those are 3 things that I do.
And I'll just add quickly, the APC team in extended learning has been working on each year a small project to outreach to our more distant students. And so we could chat about that offline a little bit if you'd like, about some of the things we've done. And if your students are in the online program, they're probably receiving those, but I know you may also be referring to students who aren't in the online program, but are fitting some of these criteria. So we could talk about that at a separate time, because I know we're running low.
Thanks.
Do we have other questions? Or I think we're kind of out of time. So we have the presentation we can share out, right? John, you'll help us with a list of registered participants. I don't know how that usually works, but.
Yeah, they're also in the calendar invite.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.